Be so lonely.
You're lonely?
No, nobody wants to see that.
Gotcha. See, that's a minute fast. We're at 6.
I got 7.
All right.
It's freezing and then it gets real hot. It's like if we stay past 8, they shut off the HVAC. And so then it gets really hot.
On the right agenda. I'd like to call the regular city council meeting for Tuesday, August 15th, 2023 to order. If you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I'd like the members from Troop 270 to come forward and lead us in that prayer, or prayer pledge. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Troop 270 is here tonight working on their citizenship merit badges, and appreciate them coming out and seeing our community in action here. So with that, first item up is the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I move the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Move on to first item, item 3, presentations, proclamations, and acknowledgments. The item before us tonight is 2023 City of Excellence Award. And with that, I will throw it to Logan.
Sure, I can give it a quick intro, Mayor, members of the council. We're really excited. Folks that have followed us at home and some coverage in the newspaper and online, we were really honored to win a League of Minnesota Cities of Excellence Award in June up at the League of Minnesota Cities Conference, recognizing our comprehensive officer wellness program. And so we've got Executive Director Luke Fisher from the League of Minnesota Cities here, and First Vice President Justin Miller here as well, who's a friendly face in Dakota County. And but he's here tonight with his League of Minnesota Cities hat on. And they'd love to formally present this to the City Council, grab a photo. We'll play a video that the League put together interviewing the mayor and some officers and the chief about our program. And then we can chat through it any further. But Luke, would happy to turn over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. It is wonderful to be here tonight to talk a little bit about some recognition that you have earned as a community for some hard work that you've done.
Welcome.
Before we get in to the recognition and the heavy lifting, I thought I'd provide just a little bit of context about who we are so people understand why we're here and why I think this award is particularly special. First of all, the League of Minnesota Cities is an association that represents 838 out of the state's 855 cities. You probably know who our largest member is. It's the city of Minneapolis with a population of 425,000. But our smallest member is the city of Barrie, and I'm wondering if you have any guesses on Barrie's population.
Barrie.
24.
24, you're very close. That's like the closest anyone's had on a first shot. So I'm like, whoo. Good job, council member. 19, Barrie has a population of 19. And as an organization, we provide services to everyone, from Minneapolis to Rosemont to Barrie. And we take that obligation that we have to our members pretty seriously. We do that through research. If you've got a question, you can call us. We do training and conferences, and you all are well known to us from that perspective. We do legislative advocacy, and we've got insurance that we offer our members as well. The cool thing about what we do is we get to see the very best of the best across the state in terms of municipal leadership, and we know the best when we see it, and that's why we're here tonight, because you guys are one of the best for the work that you've done and the time and the effort that you've committed to one of your biggest resources, your people. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that next. But before I turn it over to Justin here, I want you to know that you should all be very proud of this recognition. And this is an example that other people in the state have heard about, and I'd expect other people to emulate. So with that, Justin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here tonight. As Mr. Martin said, I'm Justin Miller. I'm the Lakeville City Administrator, but also the first Vice President for the League this year, and it is an honor to be here at the fellow Dakota County City to be presenting this award tonight. This award was first presented to the city at the League's annual conference in Duluth this past June, and I know some of you were there at that awards dinner. Each year, the League honors projects and programs that accomplish one or more of the following objectives: improve the quality of a city service, develop an effective or innovative way to solve an old or common problem, modify a program from another community organization to fit your city's needs, save the city money while achieving the same or better results, or involve citizens or other city staff in decision-making processes. Rosemount is receiving the award tonight for cities over 20,000 for your police department comprehensive officer wellness program. As you know, the program focuses on officers' mental and physical health and the resiliency of their family support network. Your wellness program tackles the challenges of officer wellness head-on and supports your officers in a holistic manner, making them better prepared to serve Rosemount residents with kindness, professionalism, and respect. Programs like yours require hard work, commitment, and enthusiasm, but the results show in employee recruitment and, more importantly, retention. And I believe now we have a video that was shared at the conference that will better explain your program. So I will try that.
What we've seen with officers as a whole throughout our occupation is unprocessed trauma can result in failing marriages, early retirement, and even lowering the life expectancy age of those officers. So our program is to emphasize officer wellness with emotional health, mental health, along with physical health.
I think what makes our program most impactful is that it offers officers, no matter where you are in your career, different angles to improving their wellness. It could be a chaplain program, it could be a peer support program, it's the power program, it's working out on duty, it's the Sigma Heart Health. Different people at different points in their life are going to find value in those different programs.
So I think one of the positive things that we've heard having this type of a program is it's reflected in our ability to recruit.
We went from 200 people that were applying to be a police officer in 2006 down to more recently we only had 7 applicants. We saw a rise in PTSD claims, we saw a rise in suicides, and we saw a rise in cardiac arrest. In fact, within 10 years we had to bury 2 of our longtime sergeants who died at ages 53 and 55.
Our goal with our administration and the city is to improve their overall culture so officers can have a long-lasting career if they choose to do so with Rosemount.
I think admittedly one of the things I'm most proud of is the officers of our department that created these programs. And as a leader, I've found value, extreme value, in making sure that they feel comfortable to take risk, be innovative, develop new programs.
All communities try to drive their benefits packages with wellness, but certainly the stressors that police have warrants a little bit more of attention, both to their physical and mental health overall.
We have a brand new facility that starts to break ground here in 2023, and we're moving in 2024. And that facility really has a wellness focus. There's a fitness center, there's wellness rooms, there's space for officers to hang photos of their family at their own desk. There's a defensive tactics room, there's a training range, there's an emergency operations center. It's things that bring wellness activities to the site that we think are going to make our officers successful.
And Mayor and Council, I might just add real quickly, your ideas have already been
There's
brought.
one simple hearing hack anyone can use to improve their...
I should add, you've already become a leader in the county in this. Some of the programs or some of the parts of this program that we're talking about tonight, specifically the cardiac screening process, has already been brought forward by my police officers as something that they want to implement in Lakeville. So thank you for being a leader there, and we have your award tonight. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You want to pop down for a photo, I think, is the plan? Come on now.
And Chief.
Chief, yeah.
Chief, yep.
So obviously, we thank the league for presenting this. We were recognized again up in going to our annual conference that was up in Duluth, and you know, our community, I think, is really supportive of our police. Particularly, we're seeing that now with the new building that's coming forward. And maybe to explain a little bit more of the program, I'd turn it over to Chief to share that. Sure. For us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Thank you to Justin, the league. Thanks for coming down to present that. That's awesome. So I unfortunately had to miss the conference in Duluth. I had some prior plans, and I don't often miss a plan on a fishing boat, so I apologize, but that's also part of my wellness programming. I think the video hit on a lot of the different programs, and one of the things I just want to say today to you guys as council members and our elected officials is thank you. Thanks for the support to provide those resources when we've asked. You don't have to do that. You know, we provided the statistics, we showed the data, and you guys have always been supportive, so I appreciate that. And then to our officers, I'm not going to stand up here and take credit for the Sigma Heart Health Program, what they've done with the chaplain program, the working out on duty. They've come forth with those ideas as innovators, as change agents in our department, and that's what you want as a leader. You want people that are, hey, we see a problem, let's fix it. They don't wait for someone else to do it. And so I'm proud of them, and I think that our culture has formed to one that they know is focusing on their longevity, and despite what you see oftentimes in the career, that the city of Rosemount is going to take care of them. So, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Want to take that with it? Right there. Nobody wants to hang on to that. Carson didn't want that either. Alrighty, with that completes our presentations, proclamations, and acknowledgements. Item 3A for this evening. We'll move on to item 4, public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on anything, items not currently on the agenda may do so at this time. Please state your name, address, and if you can limit your comments or questions to 3 minutes or less. So with that, the floor is open, the podium. You can step forward. Seeing no one making a mad dash towards the podium, we'll consider the public comment completed. That completes 4 responses to any public comment previously. We have nothing in the bin to share out tonight, so 5 is also completed, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Item number 6. Before us tonight, we have bills listing, minutes of our August 2nd regular and work session, approval of a subdivision agreement for Roscott Place, a donation acceptance from Minnesota Energy Resource, Gymnast LLC escrow agreement, the amended resolution authorizing interfund loan for Osprey TIF District, resolution and consent order imposing a civil penalty on one of our local businesses, the Halloween event, service agreement, lifetime facility, bids are being accepted, conveyance of Outlet A, Rich Valley, First Edition, Arden Place, First and Second Edition, accepting of improvements. Does anyone on council wish to push any of these items for further discussion?
I'll pull E.
E? Anything else?
And then I was going to pull G.
G, all right. With that, would anyone like to move the consent agenda with items 6, E and G pulled for further discussion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first by Essler, second by Klimpel. Roll, please.
Essler?
Aye.
Klimpel?
Aye.
Weisenthal?
Aye.
Tyson?
Aye.
Reski?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. 6 items A through M with E and G removed for further discussion. First item up is 6E. Mr. Essler.
Yep, so I pulled this one just for recognition. I don't recall seeing this on previous years, the level of $2,000 from Minnesota Energy Resources to be used for the Fall Food Truck Festival expenses. Is this the first year they've done this before? Directed to Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is the first year that they've made a donation to the event. Typically, we have not had to rely much on local businesses to get involved. We haven't been real active in looking for sponsors. We've changed that this year. So we started picking up some support. I think I was talking with them, I think it might have been at the State of the City address. Just having a conversation with one of their staff people. They were wondering if there's something they could do in the community to get more involved. And I brought up the Food Truck Fest. They said, let's do it. Went online to their website, applied for a grant, got a call back probably about a week later, and
That's great.
they're going to support us. So that's awesome.
Yep. All right,
Yep.
thank you. Yeah, because I mean, they've shown up quite a bit on a regular basis. You know, Minnesota Energy Resources shows up, they support the community in a pretty big way. I just wanted to call
They
this one
do,
out because
yeah.
this
It
is
was
a
just
new
one of
one.
those small connections we made, just being at the same event and
Yep.
just having a conversation about what, what's going on in Rosemount and how we're growing and doing so many fun things. And they, like you said, they want to get more involved, and they're already doing a lot, but they wanted to get a little bit more involved. And so
Yep.
I threw out the opportunity, the Food Truck Fest, and they jumped at it.
Great community partner.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the rest of council? If not, would you like to entertain the?
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance and expenditure of $2,000 from Minnesota Energy Resources to be used for Fall Food Truck Festival expenses.
I will second.
A motion by Essler, second by Klimpel. Roll, please.
Klimpel.
Aye.
Weisenthal.
Aye.
Tyson.
Aye.
Prusky. Aye. Essler.
Aye.
6E is approved 5-0. That will move on to 6G.
Yeah, so
Tyson.
I was just pulled this one just to get clarification. This is in regards to just a TIF district related to Project Offspray. We didn't get a chance to talk earlier. I just wanted to, so we're just amending it essentially to make an adjustment, or?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, we can chat through this one briefly. So yes, Project Osprey, as folks will remember, was the code name project for what became Home Depot, the distribution center over on Highway 3, to fund the extension of Business Parkway. The city did a tax increment financing arrangement to fund the roadway project. The bids for that project came in a bit higher than expected. We developed the TIF agreement, inflation, COVID, et cetera, and then the bids came in a bit higher. So this amendment allows the city to get fully refunded for the cost that it spent on the roadway. They were more than what we had listed in the original agreement. So hopefully I explained that well, Adam, but.
Yeah, and typically what you do, so you can see within the amended resolution that advance of up to $2.5 million. You always give yourself enough cushion to cover any additional expenses, so you don't have to amend an amended resolution down the road if those costs are even higher as you service that TIF district. So it's all within kind of what was planned and anticipated. As Administrator Martin noted, the downside is that the project bid came in higher than anticipated when that TIF agreement was originally formulated with Project Osprey.
Okay. And I apologize, because this was some of this happened right before I joined council, so
No problem.
appreciate the.
Yeah.
That's what you can do. Any other questions or comments from the rest of council? Seeing none, you move the recommended action.
Yeah, I'll recommend the action to motion to adopt the attached resolution amending resolution number 2021-83.
I'll second.
Motion by Tyson, second by Fresky. Roll, please.
Weisenthal.
Aye.
Tyson.
Aye.
Prusky. Aye. Essler.
Aye.
Klimpel.
Aye.
And that passes 6G 5-0. And that completes our consent agenda items for this evening. We'll move into public hearings. The first item up is 7A, Moratorium on the Operation of Cannabis Businesses. And we'll start with Ms. Fosbender.
Yep, I'll start it. So thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So basically here, I'll start out by providing an overview of this item and then allow any additional comments I may have missed or unable to answer to our other staff members who also assisted with this update that we have here. In addition, we also have our city attorney here as well, as we've all been working on this collaboratively over the past several weeks and months. This discussion has been going on through the 2023 legislative session as the state legalized adult use cannabis and permitted the sale of products as of August 1st of this year. So currently under the act, it provides the cities the authority related to cannabis businesses to either or to allow all of the following: to require local registration of certain cannabis businesses operating retail establishments, to adopt reasonable restrictions of the operations of cannabis businesses, to also limit the number of certain cannabis businesses based upon the population of the city, and then also prohibit the operation of cannabis businesses within certain districts or within certain areas of schools, daycares, residential facilities, or in a retraction within a public park that is regularly used by minors. So for example, any playgrounds or athletic fields. Based upon these, the legislative session and the direction that staff has discussed, our city attorney also is recommending we adopt a moratorium to allow staff and the city council the opportunity to further review the yet drafted state-level administrative rules that they're currently working on, to provide us the time to have further discussions with council about what the regulations, if any, should look like for Rosemount. This moratorium would go through early 2025, but of course, if the state completes any of this work of forming a new agency to regulate and distribute businesses, the city at any time can terminate this moratorium prior to its current date of early 2025. Before adopting an interim ordinance, state law requires that the city must hold a public hearing on this issue. Notice of this public hearing here tonight was published as required. So before you tonight, the two items that council will have is first to open up the public hearing, and then second, pending any comments from the public or council, to take action on approving this ordinance, establishing a moratorium on the operation of cannabis businesses until January 1 of 2025, unless of course repealed earlier by the city council. Basically, that's what I have for you at this point, but if you do have additional questions, as I had mentioned, we have other staff members here, our city attorney, that can answer any questions that I, of course, cannot.
All right, so before I open the public hearing, I'll open up to council. Any questions before we open up the public hearing? Looking left, right. Any questions at this time? All right, so with that, I'll open the floor to public hearing. As stated before, anyone wishing to speak on this particular topic may do so by coming forward to the podium, state your name and address, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Anyone wishing to speak on this topic may do so at this time. Going once, twice. Seeing no one come before the council on the floor at this time, I'll move to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and second to close the public hearing. Roll, please.
Tyson?
Aye.
Reski? Aye. Essler?
Aye.
Semple?
Aye.
Weisensell?
Aye. Public hearing is closed. Back to council. Any discussions or comments, or anyone you want to hear from, anything on the moratorium?
My only question would be for Mr. Martin, if we know if other communities in Dakota County are kind of following the same suit. Just, we're not an outlier, we're kind of doing the same thing as other communities as we try to get our arms around what this is or what this can turn into.
Yep, Mayor, members of the council, it's a great question, and yes, we will not be an outlier. I think that I can confidently say, to my knowledge, every city in Dakota County is doing a moratorium, and City Attorney Tejan can comment too, because she's got connections in the city attorney industry throughout the metro. I think as we all wait for the state of Minnesota to turn up a new agency to handle this, to new administrative rules and processes, we're all sitting here waiting, and so the recommendation of numerous city attorneys from firms across the country, or the state, has been just do the moratorium to give the city or the state the time to do this work. So yes, we will not be an outlier, and this is a very normal action. We intend to, based on our population, we'll have 3 licensed businesses in the city of Rosemount. It's 1 per 12,500. So because we're above 25,000, we're going to round up is the recommendation to have 3 licenses. and that we are prepared to do that, and this certainly isn't a block to that. It's rather just a chance to get the rules in place and get the state agency in place for us to have that backing, because we are not in the industry of regulating these businesses, so.
Ms. Teach, do you have anything you want to add?
Mayor and Council, just a couple things to clarify, and City Clerk did a great job of just giving the summary. The moratorium, as the council might know, last year the legislature legalized what are commonly known as edibles. And this moratorium does not apply to those products, okay? So those are legal, can be sold, and Rosemount currently doesn't have any restrictions on the sale of those products. They're usually in the form of gummies and beverages primarily. So this doesn't apply to that. This is a moratorium on cannabis, adult use cannabis retailers and businesses. So that's one clarification. And then the other thing, Mr. Martin noted about the number of businesses within the city. That is an option for the city to put a limit on the number based on population, but it's not a requirement. So, but that's one thing that the council and policymakers will have to discuss. And then there was something else I was going to mention, and ultimately, the state of Minnesota will be licensing cannabis businesses. And so once the state agency is up and running and fully staffed, and the state has done its rulemaking, which from what I'm hearing is they're anticipating later next year or early 2025 for that to happen. But the state will ultimately be the licensing entity. Although businesses will have to register with the city, but cities really have pretty limited authority in this area, aside from being able to zone and potentially limit the number of businesses. So that's just a little more information.
Councilmember Essler.
So just to follow up on your second point, so the 1 per 12,500, is that just a guideline? Are you saying that cities are entitled to they can do 0, they can do 5, depending on the population? I mean, is it really purely up to us, and that's just kind of a guideline?
You can't do 0 because
Okay.
you can't ban them.
Okay.
You will have the option to limit the number of licenses based on your population. And the way the legislation is written, it's a little unclear as far as the number, but we're hoping that the state rules will clarify that. But so you can't have 0. You can potentially limit to 2 or 3.
Based on our population.
Or you can allow as many as you want.
Okay.
But, I think
So,
that
again-
a lot of cities are discussing the option of limiting the number of businesses.
So just again, we could do 0, we can't do 0, we could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to do a minimum. If you
You'll have to
allow it, you have to
you'll have to
minimum.
do a minimum of 1 per every 12,500 residents.
So that's the minimum, unless you choose a moratorium
Correct.
and you don't allow it at all.
You can't.
Well,
You can't.
during the moratorium, no businesses can start up
apply.
in the city, okay? It's the time where the staff and the council are gonna study the issue and figure out what the rules should be. Once the moratorium is lifted on January 1st, 2025, or before, then the council, in the meantime, the council will probably have had a discussion about what it wants to do. And you will have the option of enacting an ordinance that says,
Okay.
we want whatever the number ends up being, depending on the clarification from the legislature.
So as of right now, it's either 3 or more,
Well,
what we'd be allowed to do.
Yeah, it defaults to the 12-5
Right,
determination.
correct.
Okay.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Fresky.
Just
or
a clarifying
Councilmember Fresky.
point, so you had mentioned the state won't have this agency up and running until late '24 or early 2025, and they are responsible for doing the licensing. So if we didn't have the moratorium, could a business really sell right now anyway with all of that infrastructure not in place?
Right. No, that's a very good point and a very good question. No, a business could not because they need a license from the states.
Okay.
As a practical matter, even if you didn't adopt the moratorium, chances are, you know, you'd still have time. But I think in part, the moratorium gives the city an enforcement tool.
Okay.
Because if you did have a business that tried to open, let's say illegally, without the proper licensing, the moratorium gives you the ability to have some enforcement there on the local level.
Okay,
So I think that's one benefit of having a moratorium in place.
okay, thank you, that's helpful.
It feels like the rules, because we really don't have any rules right now, it's kind of wild, wild west out there. A business could start all of a sudden selling and be unlicensed, but they would maybe take the position that since there's no rules requiring them to have a license, they could actually sell.
No, state law says they have to have a license, and they can't start a business until the state
Okay.
gives them a license.
Well,
So
with-
that is in the law.
But what this also protects, though, at least until they know for sure, is if the state got the department up and running before January 1 of
Right.
2025, then immediately they could apply, and then we're on the hook for,
Well,
For allowing it.
if you still have your moratorium in
Yeah.
place, you know, they couldn't start up business in
Right.
Rosemount until you
Yep.
lift the moratorium.
But if we didn't have the moratorium and they had
Correct.
it up and running and somebody came, then they'd be able to be in business.
Yes.
Councilmember Tyson.
Yeah, so I have a question, maybe Chief might be able to answer this a little bit better, but you brought up the gummies, I believe, or the CBD drinks and some of the things that are already being sold in the city, correct? Or if there are vendors, or maybe there aren't. I'm just making sure like there's a distinction, because this says in the moratorium, cannabis flower. I'm not sure, I'm pretty naive with this, but like the vape pens or any of that, is there?
I'm gonna have to get back to that, Councilmember Tyson. I'm not exactly sure. There may be some being sold.
Oh, there may be not, I'm not even aware.
I don't have much comment on it, but I'll tell you what I know. I mean, there are a few different businesses in town. I mean, I've been in other cities where they have, you can see they're selling THC drinks. I'm not sure if that's going on in some of our establishments or not. I haven't been to every one to check that. So, but I do know we don't have anything currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that would regulate that or prevent that.
So this moratorium, though, is on a different,
Correct. Yep. Just on the cannabis side.
okay.
And I think the flower, we're all learning the terminology together, but the cannabis flower is the smokable, vapable type piece is our understanding. So this, to Mary's point, this isn't, if somebody is currently selling the gummies, this isn't stopping them from selling the gummies or the THC infused drink. This is what just became legal on August 1st, which was the cannabis flower, because gummies were legal, I think, previously, to my knowledge. So
Last year.
was that last year? So that's, yeah.
And vaping is classified as smoking. So when we get to the next item and we talk about the public hearing on smoking in public places, that includes vaping.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So, Mayor, just to kind of wrap it up maybe, but what staff would intend to do then is to continue to research what other cities are doing, what best practices are with the help of Kennedy and Graven and Mary Tejan here, and then come back to the council with a proposed plan. So this gives us the chance to do that, and then also just really wait for the state to finish their work, so.
And I also understand we would be utilizing resources based on the League of Minnesota Cities and kind of their experience and what they're seeing as well as part of that process, I guess, of investigation.
Right.
Any other questions, comments? All right, would anyone wish to move the recommended action?
I'll make a motion to approve an interim ordinance establishing a moratorium on the operation of cannabis businesses until January 1st, 2025, unless repealed earlier by the city council.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Essler, second by Fresky. Roll, please.
Fresky?
Aye.
Essler?
Aye.
Limpel?
Aye.
Weisel?
Aye.
Tyson?
Aye.
Motion passes for the moratoriums, item 7A50. That completes 7A, and we'll move on to 7B. 7B is back to Ms. Fosbender.
Yes, thank you again, Mayor and members of council. So again, I'll just start off with providing an overview of this item and then allow additional comments again to our other staff members and city attorney. As again, we've all been working on this topic as well over the past several weeks. So as of August 1st, Minnesota law now permits an individual 21 or older to possess or transport up to 2 ounces of adult-use cannabis flower in a public place. The state of Minnesota recently approved amendments for this regulation of adult-use cannabis, specifically laying out that the law authorizes cities to adopt an ordinance establishing a petty misdemeanor offense for a person who unlawfully uses cannabis products in a public place. So currently, under state law, a person may not consume these products at any location where smoking is already prohibited, underneath the Clean Indoor Act, which is the act that protects the public from health hazards of secondhand smoke. So for example, restaurants, offices, space, and so forth. In addition, the language currently states that anyone 21 or older may use adult use cannabis in the following locations. So this is all allowed as of today, which is a private residence, a private property not generally accessible by the public, or the premises of an establishment or event licensed to permit on-site consumption. So as we've been discussing over this past several weeks, staff is recommending adopting an ordinance establishing a petty misdemeanor offense for a person who unlawfully uses cannabis in a public place. Based upon research and feedback that we've received from neighboring cities, staff would propose to define a public place as property owned, leased, or controlled by a governmental unit. So this would cover our parks, trails, facility grounds, so like community center, steeple center, ball fields, et cetera. And this is a discussion that will be ongoing here. So tonight we're just looking to open up a public hearing, receive feedback, and then based upon any feedback that we receive tonight, staff in collaboration with our city attorney will create an ordinance to bring back to you in the future to help regulate this adoption of an ordinance to help regulate the use of cannabis in the public area. So again, we will ask to open up a public hearing, receive comment, and then open up the floor to you, council members, as well, to have further discussion and, of course, ask any additional questions among staff and city attorney.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the clerk? Council members? Before I open up the public hearing. So with that, we'll I'll open up the public hearing. The floor is open. Anyone wishing to speak on this may do so by coming forward to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. So with that, the podium is open. Don't rush. Anyone wishing to come forward? Going once, twice. Seeing no one at this time, we'll move to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second on the floor to close the public hearing. Roll, please.
Essler?
Aye.
Limpel?
Aye.
Weisenfeld?
Aye.
Tyson?
Aye.
Reski?
Aye.
Hearing's closed 5-0. Questions, comments for staff on what we have before us?
I'll start. Just for a point of clarification, I know to Councilmember Fresky's point, we don't want to be an outlier next to our neighbors. Can you explain kind of what our different neighboring communities are doing specifically?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, members of the council. This is a similar answer to what I gave just a couple of minutes ago. We've been closely discussing this with our colleagues throughout the county and folks you've seen on some media and on other council agendas that I know you folks track, that it sounds like a number of our neighbors have already implemented a no smoking in public parks, just a general blanket. I think Mendota Heights, off the top of my head, did a just blanket no smoking, which covers anything you might be smoking. Other cities are still researching it, as we are proposing to continue doing here for the next month or so. And then others have done just no cannabis smoking in public parks and not looping the tobacco issue in with it. And so regardless, if you folks direct staff to land on no cannabis or no smoking, you will not be an outlier in the county. We can come back to you with a direct count of kind of the 11 major cities. My gut tells me that the majority of those cities are leaning towards the no cannabis item and not the no smoking item. We can follow up with you and fill you in on that. But at this point, would appreciate any initial direction. I think as staff have talked internally, we've had a pretty robust conversation amongst Park and Rec, police, community developments, the clerk's office, et cetera, on the best way to handle this. And at this point, you know, it's staff's opinion that perhaps that the cannabis seems to be the focus of the recent legislation, and there's maybe less need to focus on tobacco. But again, open to feedback on that. I think the differentiation that we have made on the cannabis versus tobacco thing is, first of all, cannabis is what recently received legalization. Tobacco has been around for quite a while. And then really, and the focus of kind of the state law and the legislature and other analyses that I've read is really the more direct intoxicating factor associated with cannabis as compared to a thing like tobacco. And so maybe just to help you frame your mind on where you'd like to talk about it here for the next few moments and direct staff, that's kind of a differentiation that we have made is do we go after everything? And the notion being that you know, parks are places meant for exercise and fresh air, and maybe smoking in general is antithetical to what you should be doing in a park? Or is that too broad, and maybe what just became legal is cannabis, what's more intoxicating is cannabis, and we get direction from you to focus on cannabis. So those are kind of the two pathways that we see forward, but would love to hear feedback.
Yeah. I was just going to say in the, you know, in this, you know, what Aaron had just gone through, we were talking about parks, trails, we're talking about RCC, Steeple Center, the ball fields, all of those places are kind of non-smoking locations already, aren't they? Like RCC, there's no smoking in RCC, Steeple Center.
On the grounds, I think you could, you know, I think folks could leave a wedding and smoke outside of a wedding at Steeple or RCC, and you could smoke, you know, a cigarette during your son's baseball game or what have you right now. So we do allow, you know, allow is maybe an aggressive term, but smoking in parks is allowed. Right. Tobacco.
I guess the reason why I say that is some of this kind of takes care of a little bit of the I mean, I think the cannabis is definitely where we go. I would just suggest that staff looks at, like, I love that idea of getting the number of what the local other communities are doing just to get a consensus. But also, I think the cannabis is the priority here for sure, to really kind of put some parameters around that, because some of this is already, you know what I mean, the smoking outside RCC or one of these government areas. I don't know if we want to get down that road. That's up to the rest of the council. But I guess my focus would be specifically for me is just really the cannabis in the park. Like we don't want people, I don't think, you know, smoking in a park in front of other, you know, kids and families, that type of thing.
Councilman Essler?
Yeah, I would agree with Councilman Tyson. I think it's important to keep track of what the neighbors are doing. I mean, Dakota County is a relatively small community, and you know, we've got residents that visit other parks, and I think it's just important to keep tabs on it. Not to say that we need to follow suit always, but I think it's important that we're at least made aware of what their policies are if they change from where they're at today.
And definitely, and from a business, you know, kind of business competitive standpoint, and that's been a focus of ours too. And just to give maybe a bit more color here as you're thinking through it, you know, as we've talked to my colleague in Lakeville who was here earlier tonight, you know, one of their conversations has been about the differentiation between trails and sidewalks, and we're going to want to talk through it, I think, with the city council, just because downtown Lakeville, for example, I know during their meeting they discussed the fact that a sidewalk is running right in front of a business owner's front door, right? Front door of B-52s or front door of Lakeville Brewery or whatever. Do we want our business owners to need to regulate what's happening on that public sidewalk? And so I think we'll work with Mary and come up with a definition of potentially, you know, trail versus sidewalk. And do we want to battle the sidewalk battle versus the trail battle? You can get a bit deeper on it too in terms of if folks live in an apartment, and it's not allowed in the grounds of the apartment, then now the sidewalk is potentially the only place they have to go to exercise this right that the state of Minnesota has granted to them, which has been an interesting kind of equity issue that's been discussed at the state level and on some media outlets, which I think is an important angle to remember, that those of us that are fortunate to be homeowners, you've got your property to do it upon. If you're maybe not a homeowner, now where are you allowed to do it? And so we'll want to guide the council through the sidewalk versus trail conversation a little bit as well.
But along with that, though, I think I would really like to get the police chief and the officers to try to protect them too. Like, how is this, you know what I mean? When we talk about trail versus sidewalk, how is that going to be? Is that going to be more difficult? I would love their feedback on really how can we make their lives easier with this? I mean, once again, leading with positive intent, leading with trying to do good what's for the full community, trying to see what other communities are doing, but also making sure that we're not disadvantaging our officers and our people that are working for our people.
Sure.
Looking at,
No, I was just having a side conversation with Ms. Fassbender too. I think one thing we need to be mindful of is I want more information, but I would assume like the city of Minneapolis and the city of St. Paul, they won't have restrictions, right? It is now a legal right per the state of Minnesota. I don't foresee them restricting anything in their parks or trails. We don't know that yet, but it's just something to be mindful of to get the full viewpoint of the Twin Cities area as we're making these decisions as well.
boys, I'm going to go and ask two people to come forward to speak a little bit. First, Director of Parks, Dan Schultz. Thoughts on, I guess we got a couple things here, and I know we're going to dig into it a little deeper, but some initial thoughts on restricting smoking altogether or restricting just cannabis, and thoughts.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, council members, currently we have a policy on the books. It's not an ordinance. It's not something that we can go out and necessarily enforce. But we have a policy that we adopted several years ago through the Tobacco Alliance, Non-Smoking Tobacco Alliance in Minnesota. We did that when youth are present, or youth sports or youth activities are present. So we have that policy. You'll see if you go by a lot of our backstops, you'll see these signs which relate to no tobacco use.
And that covers not just smoking, but also chewing as
Correct.
well?
Tobacco use, yep, correct. And so I think, like our city administrator mentioned, we currently don't really see any issues in our parks with smoking. We don't, it's just not, you might have somebody who comes down during like Leprechaun Days or the Food Truck Fest or the BYOC and has a cigarette, while they're sitting watching the band or something. But it's not something we see real often in our parks. And I know people seem to be pretty respectful of kids and families that are in our parks. When there's just adults nearby, maybe at night over at the disc golf course, you might have people that are smoking. But again, I think they're pretty respectful of their peers and the neighbors that are visiting the park with them. I think the reason why we are focusing more, again, on the cannabis is, again, like Mr. Martin said, is it's the intoxicating, nature of the drug. And so that's why I think we're a little bit more focused right now on that, and we want to tackle that before it gets, we get too far down the road, talk about that. The Parks and Recreation Commission will have this on their agenda on whatever the fourth Monday of the month of August is, to discuss that. And then we'll bring back a recommendation from them also to share with you when we have our meeting, the next council meeting, to talk about this. And so, but again, I think, I think a lot of people have asked tonight, what are our neighbors doing? And you're going to see a little bit of both. You're going to see some people going after just smoking, and you're going to see some that are just tackling, the cannabis. And so, I've had meetings with my peers in the Park and Rec field, and like I say, it's kind of a split right now. Not everyone has made a decision. A lot of the cities are doing just what we're doing, coming to you to talk about it, and then we're going to survey our peers, and then we'll come back with a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Then I'd ask Chief to come and share at least some of the things I know that we've discussed a little bit regarding enforcement. One of the things that the law does restrict us is, and I can understand some people saying, well, why don't you just make a, more than a petty misdemeanor, which essentially is, if I recall, somewhere around $100, maybe $150 fine. We're restricted by the state law that we really can't do anything more than a petty misdemeanor, correct?
Yeah, that's listed in the actual statute, correct. I guess from my perspective, and just I think it's for sure we're going to come back with a lot of data. Here's what all the different cities are doing. That's pretty easy to put together in Dakota County. But I do know that there's at least one that it's not going to have any restrictions. So you're going to have it's smoking is allowed in any public place to smoking is allowed in no public places in Dakota County. So you'll see a wide spectrum, but I think the majority is going to end up falling in the middle. And then we're going to see the discrepancies is maybe how they define what a public place is, down to what we were discussing earlier, between whether it's a sidewalk or a trail or a government-owned piece of property. In that sense, one of the things that we're keying in on as police officers is that it's still illegal to drive and smoke marijuana. So while it's legal to use, you're not allowed to drive under the influence of marijuana. Without getting into the how we enforce that and blood draws and search warrants and everything else, that's where my mind goes. Mr. Schultz mentioned tobacco. I haven't personally seen an issue with tobacco over the 18 years that I've been here. That doesn't mean we recommend it to anybody, but just from an enforcement standpoint or calls of nuisance, or we don't get many involving tobacco. But we would like, if you don't have an ordinance of any kind, it restricts your ability to take any action to identify someone. Say there is an issue in your park where someone is openly smoking marijuana. Without that ordinance in place, we'll never have the ability to take enforcement action if we need to.
So I think that speaks to while we have probably residents that are like more libertarian, like don't put any any ordinance or anything to those that are trying to make it as like, no, as far as that you can keep it from actually coming into the community, which that train's kind of left the train house already.
Right. Once departed. So yeah, I think the best we can do as staff is we're going to bring you guys back a bunch of information to council and show the spectrum of where we're at compared to our neighbors. And we've had some good internal discussions. The equity piece was new to me in one of our last internal discussions. That's something to think about. If you're living in an area that prohibits your use, and then you also cannot use on a sidewalk, well, then now does that create an equity issue? So it's an interesting discussion. It's new to all of us, so we'll just get as much data as we can and go from there.
Any initial questions? I know we're going to sit probably through at least one work session, maybe several. Anything for the chief while he's up here now?
No, nothing, no.
Okay.
Just a general comment. It'll be interesting, to get information about, what the neighboring communities are doing, but it is interesting that until this issue was raised, it doesn't seem like we were interested in doing anything different with smoking cigarettes from what we have today. So I would just advise us to maybe be careful that we don't take this issue and now all of a sudden it raises another issue that wasn't an issue before, which is somewhat related, but not completely related. So I just want to, suggest that why would we?
I would bring forward at least while we had some opportunities during Leprechaun Days and also Night to Unite, there were some residents that knew this was coming forward and are of the opinion that if you're going to do one, do the other. They expressed a strong opinion that we shouldn't have any smoking, tobacco or so. I'm just saying that we have across the spectrum in our community, those that want, everything to nothing. And, that kind of lands on us to try to ferret that out. I do have two questions, probably Ms. Tejan can address these a little bit. In there, it talks about a governmental agency. I'm curious then, there are properties that are community or our county taken care of, and trails that run through our community. Has the county moved on anything on this yet? This question is probably for Logan. Are you aware of anything with the county moving forward with anything?
Dan, I think we talked, the county was doing trails, if we remember right, but maybe they're still talking through it. I think the county was leaning towards trails and parks.
Okay, so as we look at neighboring communities, we also have the county to deal with. This one is more of definition of a government agency. Is MVTA considered one of these governmental agencies and would regulate the park and ride that's outside of City Hall here?
Are you, Mayor, are you referencing language, I think, in the memo that talks about public places being owned by a public entity? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so MVTA, I don't know if you have a quick opinion, Mary, but they're a recipient, they're like a Met Transit, they're a recipient of transit dollars. We could dig into that.
I believe
But
they are a governmental entity.
I think that they are as well, and then same with, we expect the school will do a policy,
Yeah.
but that's a publicly owned, governmental owned, so school grounds would carry over as well, if we kept the definition as presented where it's a public entity, but.
Mayor,
Please.
Council, I think it will, that will be one of the big questions, is how you define public place for this ordinance, right? And so there's a whole variety of approaches being taken out there by cities. Some, and this is maybe repeating what's already been said, but some are just limiting it to public parks. And it would be, trails within the parks or anything within the park boundaries. So some cities are taking that approach. Some cities, I think, like Duluth, which was in the news, right, are saying nowhere, no public place, basically. So it really, that's one of the policy questions for you all to think about, is just how do you define that? Where do you want to prohibit the act of smoking?
I think, and it doesn't sound like it's clear, but at least understanding those type of, I'll call them quasi agencies, some that are, they're not, people aren't really elected, but like MVTA, there's elected that serve in there. It is a public entity of some type. And how is that defined? The schools are obviously one where you would expect that, I suspect that they would, because there's youth involved, they're not going to want cannabis smoked on their property anywhere. I don't know. So I guess there are some other inputs, I guess, that we need to kind of ferret out there. From our standpoint, I think I'm hearing at least some general direction to the staff to probably limit it to cannabis, and then trying to get some definitions around public spaces that we can deal with. Does anybody take exception to that on council at the moment?
No.
Not at this time.
We're not relitigating tobacco.
Yeah, so we're not making any decisions. We're giving direction this evening. With that, do you think that gives staff enough
I think
direction?
we feel great, Mayor and Council.
Okay.
Thanks for the discussion.
And then those that may be watching, or even those here, if there's some things that you're hearing us kind of talk and weighing, both sides of the fence, if you really have strong feelings or something and you didn't have an opportunity to speak at our public hearing tonight, you most certainly go talk to your state representatives. You can talk to the House Representative John Hewitt, our state senator, Aaron May Quaid. They were part of the legislature that put this in our lap to deal with, so you certainly can talk to them and express your opinions. With that, if there's nothing else on item 7B, we'll consider that closed for this evening. There is no unfinished business, new business, and we are up to number 10, announcements. Look to City Administrator Martin on city staff updates.
Mr. Mayor, I think I've got nothing for you tonight, so I think I can hand the mic right back to you guys. But, Mr. Schultz is coming up. Let's give the mic to Dan.
All right, Mr. Mayor and council members, I just want to remind the council and the community about a few special events we have coming up here in the next, well, in the next month. The first one is the BYOC Music Night, which is Bring Your Own Cooler Music Night, which is at Central Park. It's this Saturday, August 19th at 7 p.m. We have the band Schizophonic, which is a pop and rock music band that will be down here at Central Park. And fun band, I've heard them before, and it's just an event where we just invite people to come out. We'll have a couple of food trucks. I know for sure there's a pizza food truck coming. You know, there's not a lot of vendors, but it's just kind of bring your own cooler, bring a lawn chair, and just have a night in the park and enjoy some music. Bring the family, let them play in the playground or the splash pad, and enjoy the night. The second thing I want to draw your attention to is the Fall Community Tennis Night, which is going to be Tuesday, August 22nd. That event is from 5 to 6 p.m. We have partnered with the girls' high school tennis team to do a community tennis night where we invite the public in to learn more about tennis. We have all kinds of trinkets and giveaways that we hand out. And then after this, the city actually will be the host for the Rosemont High School girls tennis team against the South St. Paul girls tennis team, and that'll be down at Central Park on Erickson Park tennis courts, just down below where the baseball and softball complex is. Again, 5 to 6 p.m. on Tuesday, August 22nd. And then the last thing I want to bring up, we've already talked about this a little bit tonight, is the Food Truck Fest. Our 5th annual Food Truck Fest will be Saturday, September 16th. That'll be from 4 to 9 p.m. We'll have 18 different vendors on site. Over half of the vendors this year will be new. We turned over several of the trucks just to kind of keep the event fresh and to get more food and more opportunities out there for vendors. Again, it's an all-age event. The cost is free. Again, Saturday, September 16th at Central Park, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's it.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So you took my first item away. That completes city staff updates. I'll look to council just before I do my upcoming community calendar. Anyone wish to share any of their collaterals, any issues out there? Seeing none. All right, we'll move to the upcoming community calendar. As noted before, the BYOC Music Festival on August 19th. We have Farmers Market, August 22nd, 1 to 5. Planning Commission, August 22nd, 6:30 to 7:30 here at City Hall. The Youth Commission meeting, I believe, is at the Steeple Center, 3:45 to 4:45 on August 23rd. Park and Rec regular meeting, August 28th, 7 to 8, also here at City Hall. The Farmers Market again on Tuesday, August 29th. We have another Farmers Market, September 5th, 1 to 5. And our next City Council work session also on September 5th from 5 to 6, and followed by the City Council meeting 7 to 8 on the 5th as well. So with that, is there any other business to come before City Council this evening? Seeing none, with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.